5:40 in the evening. You pour the milk into the green cup because the green cup was yesterday's favorite, and you hand it over like a person delivering good news. The world ends. Not a whine, a full structural collapse. He wanted the blue cup. Fine, you transfer the milk to the blue cup, at which point things somehow get worse because now the milk has touched the wrong cup and is contaminated beyond all rescue. There is screaming about cup provenance. There is back-arching. A small person is face down on the kitchen floor, grieving a beverage container, and you are standing over him holding 2 cups, quietly doing the math on how a child who was perfectly happy 11 seconds ago has been flattened by dishware. If you live with a 2 or 3-year-old, you were possibly there today, and the question asks itself, how is this the thing that breaks him? The trap is reading the size of the reaction as the size of the cause. An adult who screamed over a cup would be joking or unwell. So when a toddler does it, the adult explanations rush in. Spoiled, dramatic, playing you, and every one of them assumes the cup is the cause. The cup is almost never the cause. The cup is the trigger, the last small demand landing on a system that has been quietly maxing out for hours. Tonight, the villain wore a blue handle, but the case against the cup falls apart the moment you look at the rest of the day. Start with the equipment. A toddler's feelings are not small feelings scaled down. The frustration, the wanting, the disappointment arrive at full volume. What is missing is the machinery for doing anything about them once they have arrived. Psychologists call that machinery effortful control, the capacity to suppress an impulse, shift attention, wait.
Grazina Kohanska and her colleagues at the University of Iowa measured it in toddlers, testing more than 100 children at 22 months and again at 33 months, and published the ARC in Developmental Psychology in the year 2000. The lab tasks are adorable, by the way. Wait before grabbing the treat. Whisper instead of shouting. Walk the line slowly. The finding? Between those 2 ages, effortful control improved considerably, which is the polite research way of saying that at the front end, there is barely anything there to improve. At 2.5, the system that is supposed to catch a surge of frustration before it becomes a floor situation is partially installed, intermittently online, and easy to knock over. The feeling is full size. The brakes are on back order. Equipment is half of it. Conditions are the rest. Even a half-built braking system performs wildly differently depending on what the day has already spent, and sleep is the cleanest demonstration anyone has run. In 2012, the sleep scientist Monique Lebourgeois and her colleagues published an elegant little experiment in the Journal of Sleep Research. Take healthy 2.5 to 3-year-olds. Skip 1 scheduled nap, about 90 minutes of sleep. Then hand each child 2 puzzles, 1 solvable and 1 secretly impossible, and film their faces. Same children, same puzzles, with and without the nap. Short that single nap, their positive responses to solving the doable puzzle dropped by about 1/3, and their negative responses to the impossible one rose by nearly as much. 1 missed nap measurably changed how the same child's emotion system priced the same events. Run that forward across an ordinary day. The night was short because of a cough. Lunch was 4 bites and a negotiation. Daycare took every drop of holding it together a small brain could pump, and then came errands, a car seat, a transition, another transition, and the smell of dinner that exists but refuses to arrive. None of those registers as an event. Each one is heat under the kettle. By 5:40, the water has been murmuring for an hour, and the cup, the trivial, governable, blue-handled cup, is simply when the whistle goes. You did not watch a child get destroyed by a cup. You watched a kettle finally boil, and the cup happened to be standing closest.
A quick word about the battery, because you will hear this stage explained that way. Self-control as a fuel tank. The day drains it, the cup arrives on empty. It is a tidy picture with a wobbly pedigree.
The fuel tank theory, ego depletion, in the adult literature, was a fixture of psychology for nearly 2 decades, until 2016, when 23 labs reran the standard experiment together and collectively found an effect indistinguishable from zero. So no battery talk here. The toddler story does not need it anyway, because the better evidenced version is simpler. The control system is barely built in the first place, and the states that load it, short sleep, hunger, novelty, change, are documented, and they stack. Less a tank running dry than a brand new machine running hot. Which leaves the strangest part. Why the cup? Why does a loaded system blow over cup color, sandwich geometry, a sock seam? Which parent was allowed to press the elevator button? It turns out toddlers have a documented thing about a certain way.
In 1997, the psychologists David Evans, James Leckman, and colleagues published a study in child development with a title worth the download: Ritual, Habit, and Perfectionism. After asking the parents of well over 1,000 young children about this exact behavior, insisting on sameness, lining things up, arranging routines that must go a certain way, getting genuinely upset at small imperfections. They even named one of their questionnaire scales Just Right, because so much of toddler life is a campaign to make the world feel just right. The behavior was not rare, and it was not a warning sign. It was the norm, rising fast in the second year of life and running highest between roughly ages 2 and 4. The cup years, exactly. One reasonable reading of why: a person with zero say over the schedule, the menu, the car seat, or the existence of pants will govern the few things that can be governed. The cup is governable.
So the cup carries a weight no adult can see, and then it arrives wrong, on a system already at temperature. The spoiling theory still deserves its day, because the strongest version of it is not stupid. Toddlers are ferocious learning machines, and contingencies do register. If screaming has reliably produced the blue cup, screaming becomes more likely over time. That part is real. It is basic learning. And it is why the pattern around tantrums matters across months. But look at what the theory needs next: intent. A schemer who deploys the scream as a tool, on purpose, to move you. Deliberate manipulation requires holding a model of another person's mind, knowing what you believe, predicting what will change your behavior. And that machinery, what researchers call theory of mind, famously does not come online until around age 4.
A meta-analysis of nearly 200 studies in child development put the shift right about there. Below that age, children fail the classic test not occasionally, but systematically. And you have already run the decisive field experiment yourself. Hand over the blue cup at the very peak of the scream and see whether the little strategist takes the win. Almost never. By that point, the blue cup is wrong too, because somewhere past a certain line, this stopped being about cups at all. A negotiation ends when the demand is met. A storm has to finish. What a storm actually is, somebody went and measured. James Green at the University of Connecticut and Michael Podegel at the University of Minnesota wanted to know what a tantrum is made of. So they had families dress their toddlers in outfits fitted with small wireless microphones and let ordinary life happen.
13 households sent back recordings, and the team ended up classifying more than 2,000 individual sounds from real tantrums. Every howl, yell, whine, and sob. Publishing the acoustics in the journal Emotion in 2011. The structure surprised people. A tantrum is not a staircase that starts angry and ends sad. The two emotions run at the same time, layered. Anger, the screaming, the yelling, the stiffened back, spikes hard and early in sharp peaks. Sadness, the whimpering, the crying, the reaching to be picked up, hums underneath the whole time and outlasts the anger. Two practical things fall out of that shape. At the peak, input is fuel. Portugal warns about what he calls the anger trap, where even gentle, reasonable questions stretch the angry phase, because a brain at full surge cannot process a request for information. And once the peaks pass, the sadness is sitting right there, asking to be comforted, which is the moment a hug finally lands.
Fewer words at the peak, more holding at the turn. The lesson about flexibility can wait for a child who is actually back in the room. And if your kitchen hosts one of these a few times a week, you are inside the lines. When Lauren Walkschlag's team at Northwestern put real numbers on this in 2012, surveying the parents of close to 1,500 preschoolers, tantrums turned out to be near universal, and fewer than 1 child in 10 had one daily. Frequency is the useful dial, not existence. Occasional spectacular cup grief in the 2s and 3s is development working as designed. A pattern of daily, long, exhausting tantrums month after month, outbursts that routinely leave the child or someone else hurt, or rages that detonate out of nowhere with adults who are not you, none of that is a verdict on anyone. It is simply worth saying out loud at the next pediatrician visit, and asking costs nothing, which hands you the real levers. And notice that none of them are
anywhere near the cup. Upstream beats downstream in this game, every single time. Protect the nap like load-bearing architecture, because the Colorado data says it is. Get calories in before the cliff. 5 o'clock crackers are not a parenting failure. They are load management. Thin out the transitions stacked into the worst stretch of the day where you can. Offer the governable choices early, blue or green before you pour, while the choosing machinery is still online. And mid-storm, do embarrassingly little. Stay close, keep bodies safe, bank the words, wait for the turn. Then run one small experiment this week. For 3 days, every blow-up gets a 1-line note on your phone. The time, the last sleep, the last food, and what was changing in that moment. Read the notes on night 3. Somewhere in that little log, the real cause keeps repeating its schedule, and once you can see the kettle, you will never again spend a good evening arguing with a cup.